Guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am I. My name is Joshua Ansley, and I really don't have anything to say anymore. I spoke a lot over the past 7 weeks about the chakras, and there was a lot of information in that, 20-minute vlogs at a time. And, it's a lot of information to integrate, and it's a pretty powerful experience for me every time I do it. I say every time I do it because a lot of times I've been going through the chakras in class for the last 7 weeks in my yoga classes. And I did that once about 2 years ago, and it's an incredibly transformative experience. And it was so much deeper this time. The same kind of work was just so much deeper, going back and seeing it from a completely different perspective. My growth has just come exponentially far in the last 3 years. I figured I'd just share a little bit today, about where I'm at. It's tremendous to see how phenomenal my life is right now. I'm recording this record with some amazing people, and it sounds unbelievable. It's slow and steady. I've been really impatient with it and understanding this is just a process. This is how long it takes. Everything I think I don't know. This has been a really challenging experience, but it's incredibly enlightening, and there's so much growth. All I do every day is really work on, let's just say, connection to self or spirituality or something, but there's these different ideas that contemplation of the self, meaning the higher spiritual self. I believe that if we don't work down through those lower chakras, if we don't work down through our psychological, let's say psycho-spiritual, because that's different. If we don't work down through our psychological stuff, some gurus say just think about elevating, stop fighting your demons and they'll go away. And I understand that. But I know in my own experience, the dark night of the soul is an essential part of growth. It's what happens, and that's why I love to be able to help people through that now, because we're just enmeshed in thinking that's reality, that our thoughts and our emotions are what life is, and it's just not. And that inhibits us from being able to experience all of life and integrate all of life. I spoke about in the crown chakra, or in the top two chakras, Agya and Sahasrara, about moving towards singularity, and then beyond singularity into the one without a second. And I talk a lot about absolute, and it's interesting because I've come up into a lot of paradoxes in my journey. And spirituality just inherently has a lot of paradoxes in it. And I'm realizing a little bit where when I speak about the absolute, I'm still using that as a psychological understanding. And I know that, but absolute love, absolute trust, absolute surrender, absolute stability and strength, and this unwavering, unchanging, changeless, that is all really powerful truths. And when I speak about the absolute, it's really not, it's dangerous to get into the absolute and think about it as this is the way it is, right? So it's not absolute in that way, but it's more of an integrated than it is absolute, because we have to go through, it's kind of like we have to get an understanding of our lower self. This, again, just my opinions, right? All of this is my opinion, because it's all just fucking opinion and our thought and belief systems, right? So we have to be willing to let all of that go so that we can expand and grow. And let our absolute go so that we can expand into the integrated and actually see them all and integrate them all and see them all operating at the same time, being able to exist in all of them at the same time. It's being able to exist in our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, intellectual body, the bliss body, and end in the self, or as the self. So it really is a completely different understanding of existence. And when we have an integrated understanding of existence, then there's no exclusion. So there's no this way or that way or one way, right? So even though we're talking about one, there is a difference between coming from I still like to use absolute because I think it's a good definition, but it is, I'm figuring out, as I figure out my way of conveying what the hell, I wish people understood what the fuck I was talking about. I know you think you do sometimes, probably. Sometimes you're like, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. Other times you're probably like, I get it. And do you? I'm not saying you don't. This isn't like an arrogance thing. It's like, do we ever really understand ourselves when we're talking about these deeper concepts? Because I've seen something where I'm like, oh, I get that. And then I get it a totally different way 10 years later. And I thought I got it. So that means, like, do I ever really get it? I don't know, And so there's really a whole different idea of moving from, like, I believe that we have to understand and have a connection with ourself and our ego before we can let it go. So if we're trying to move up into these higher echelons of consciousness without having done that lower stage work, it's just not going to be possible. And I can't say it's not going to be possible, but I believe it's going to be far, far more arduous and confusing and detrimental to the psyche than it is to understand. Once we have a healthy, healed, whole relationship within our psyche, and we take care of that within ourselves, then we can actually let that all go. And then we can actually surrender that, because we realize from a healthy, safe, stable place, we can see the world differently, and we can let go of our old belief systems to move into new ones that are going to integrate newer understandings. When we have newer problems in our lives that we've encountered that our old belief systems can no longer reconcile, that's when we have to let go of the belief system. Stop trying to jam it into this old belief system to make it work, right? We integrate newer belief systems. So we have to detach from that old way of thinking and that old understanding, and moving into an integrated state. So that's how we can be with other people that have different socio-political views or whatever, because we can actually understand that from where they're coming from, right? So you can just be like, well, it's just empathy and compassion or something like that. It's not really that. It's about actually understanding, because all the stuff that I teach, there's some shit that is going to not make any sense, or that is going to actually cause anxiety, which could be detrimental, like I said, to people that are in earlier stages of growth. That doesn't mean better or worse. In no way, shape, or form does it mean better or worse. It just is, right? It's just, there may be further down the road or something like that, but who cares? What difference does that make, right? We're still just on the same fucking road. And then we allow those people to help us go further, get further down the road. If there was nobody else further down the road, there'd be nobody else to help guide us, right? So, and I think it's important, we look at all these different systems, and they're spiritually and, inspired by God, if you will. It's all fucking people. It's all people writing it. I don't give a shit if you're fucking ancient sages. It doesn't mean I can understand and respect the differences between, an active crack addict and, a really powerfully spiritual, giving human being. So I can understand the differences between them, right? Without judgment, because I'm not going in the absolute, as in right or wrong. I'm in an integrated state. I'm not saying I'm in an integrated state. I'm moving towards that. And from an integrated state, I can see the different levels of human beings. I can clearly see that, right? So, but that doesn't mean that the people that are further along are still just human beings. I don't even say just human beings, because that denies the glory of who we actually are as human beings. It's this battle between the divine and the human, which is, I believe, again, needs to be integrated. It doesn't need to be fought. It doesn't need to be one or the other. I had that battle for a long time in my life. I wanted to go join a monastery, and I thought relationships with women in some way were detrimental. And I thought that being worldly, that's where the Bhagavad Gita comes in. It's how to live a spiritual life on the battlefield of life. It's not retreating into a cave. And some people could say, because you're not ready for that. Fine, fucking fantastic. Then without judgment, I can say, I'm not ready for that. I'm not that far down the road where I'm giving everything up. Because if you do, you're talking about renunciation. Renunciation is not suppression. And you can act in the world in a sense of renunciation. You could have everything. You could have all of it. You could have abundance and wealth and sex with fucking tons of different people and have everything you want, and it still not be something that is not spiritual. Because the attachment, the relationship is when a worldly person is somebody that goes into the world to seek resolution to the issues. And a spiritual person is one that goes into themselves to seek resolution to the issues, right? So it's your relationship to the world, it's your attachment to it, so you can still engage with the world. As a matter of fact, in some ways it is far more advanced to be in the world and not of it than it is to completely close off and be a recluse. And again, I'm not saying, because I'm not sitting in a mountaintop meditating and coming to a space, and God knows how they're defending the galaxy and doing something, I have no idea, right? Or maybe they don't need to, that's not their purpose. But if we're suppressing and repressing shit in order to do that, with the practices like fasting and penury and poverty, vows of poverty and things like that, it's all, that's going to be destructive. That's what leads to fucking, priests molesting and things like that, is this repression and not understanding their own sexuality and who they are, right? So I completely understand that for myself, it is an integrated state of understanding all these places. And I have just begun. I feel like I've just begun, even the things that I'm talking about now are things that I'm reading this week that are like, holy shit, I've been trying to fucking figure out one or the other. The black and white thinking has been so destructive in my life for so long. It is not black and white. It doesn't mean that there is not black and white. And even when I live in the gray and then deny the black and white, it's like, no, sometimes it's black, sometimes it's white. It's somewhere, anywhere in the gray, it's along the whole spectrum. But understanding that it's all of that is in the integrated space. When I have to choose that in some way in this physical world, to live in this physical world and to relate emotionally and mentally, which are all relative states, then I need to understand black and white and all of gray, right? But in that space of wholeness and completeness, it is absolutely integrated with all of it, and I can exist all at once, and I can coexist all at once with fucked up people, because y'all are fucked. Y'all are fucked. Y'all are fucked. Including me, of course. I'm talking to me. I'm talking to you, Josh. I'm talking to you. All right. In Lakesh Lakin, I am you, you are me. Namaste. What? Too much?